The questions we get a lot is, hey, at the end of our hot air balloon ride or a hot air balloon flight, where do we land? Do you know where you're going to land? So sometimes we know where we're going to land, and sometimes we don't know exactly where we're going to land until, just a couple minutes beforehand. Now, do we have a plan? Of course. Before the flight, we talked about the pie ball balloons we put up, and we check with the weather service to find out what direction the winds are going at different heights. That gives us a good idea of our flight plan. Now, because we've been flying in Auburn and Seattle, and specifically in the Enumclaw Valley for a very long time now, we've gotten to know a lot of the landowners, and those landowners love hot air balloons. So we have certain ones that they may have a beautiful property and no gate, and they say, yeah, you feel free to land here anytime you want. We also have, some places that have locked gates, and they've very graciously given us those gate codes and allowed us to land on their properties. Now, although it's awesome to be able to land on a property where you already know them and your friends, that doesn't always happen. Now, sometimes the wind goes in a different direction and you find a perfect landing spot. Now, how I see it is the best way to make friends is by landing a hot air balloon on someone's property. Now, there's two things that we consider before landing. Number one, we look is there access? So is there a road? Are there gates? Is there somewhere where it's an easy, accessible place in order to retrieve the balloon, where we don't need to necessarily drive on any other part of their property than the main driveway or the road? The second thing we look for is, are they home? Is there a car? Is there a truck? Or are they outside? And one of my favorite things to do in landing the hot air balloon is that we'll be coming pretty slowly over someone's house and they'll come outside, right? They can hear kind of the noise from the balloon, this, every time the burner goes. And when they're below, I yell out and I say, hey, down there, would you be okay if we were to land our hot air balloon down in your yard over here? And 99% of the time they say, yeah, that'd be fine. And every once in a while they'll say, hey, I'd rather you not. And I say, okay, that's totally fine. Have a great day, and we'll look for that next spot. A lot of times too, there will be a big field behind someone's home. And so if they're outside, I always ask them from the balloon, I say, hey, is that field back over there? Do you know those guys? And do they have access in order to get in? Now, the best case scenario is where before we've landed, we either have our crew go and talk to the landowner, or from the air we're able to talk to them. Now, the third scenario is where we land the balloon, but we keep the balloon standing up. Now, when we land, the balloon's standing straight up and down still, right? So it's still standing about 70 or 80 feet tall. And we'll let the balloon start to cool down. Now, if the crew's there at that time, the crew will go knock on the door and say, hey, our hot air balloon pilot landed the balloon over right here on your property. Would you be okay if we were to take the balloon down on your property over here? And are you okay with that? And 99% of the time, people are totally okay with that. And they come out. They sometimes even help us in packing up the hot air balloon, which is kind of fun too. Now there's other cases where we have a little bit more wind. It's in a place where we haven't landed necessarily before, and we're gonna have a little bit faster landing. At that point, our most important thing that we're thinking about is the safety of our passengers or our guests and the pilot and the balloon. In that case, we're looking for a large field. We're still looking for some place that has access and some place where we can hopefully find the landowners pretty quickly. At that point, we'll set the balloon down, we lay the balloon over, and we let all the hot air out. And at that point, we try to find the landowner and talk to neighbors in order to make sure that that we're able to have access to that property. Now, because we've been flying in Enumclaw and Auburn so long, we know so many of the property owners that most of them are friends where we land, and every once in a while we get to meet someone new.